In other news, Russia bans being gay. Probably not, but maybe. Here's the story. Russia outlaws international LGBT public movement as extremist. I'm going to have to chime in and say the international movement, yeah, they're extremists. And I'll tell you why. I mean, when I see people flying flags of an ideology, it's already getting to that point where you're like, okay, those people are really into that ideology, right? But that's not extremism. It's just you are like entrenched. So when I fly the Gadsden flag, yeah, you better believe I am all about America, baby. Freedom, individuality, responsibility. But then you have to add into the fact that many of these same people are fighting cops in the streets. Okay, now you're getting into violent territory. And that in and of itself is not extremism. But then you see what the other leftist factions do with the same symbolism. And people have been killed. And so I'd say arguably there's an element of it that is getting extreme. And I can understand why Russia is concerned about it. But let's read and see exactly what they're claiming. That's The Guardian writing, so take it all with a grain of salt. Russia's Supreme Court has allowed what it called an international LGBT public movement, has called this movement as extremist. Has outlawed what it called international LGBT public movement as extremist. Okay. In a landmark ruling that representatives of gay and transgender people warn will lead to arrests and prosecutions of the already repressed LGBTQ plus community. The ruling, in effect, outlaws LGBTQ plus activism in a country growing increasingly conservative since the start of the Ukraine war. Oh, here they go. No, shut up. Start of the Ukraine war. I just hate these people so much. I'm sorry, I just do. Russia has always been opposed to this stuff. Since the start of the Ukraine war. They want us to blow people up so bad, these disgusting psychopaths. Let me tell you. Hanging out with some friends, I mentioned this, and I met a woman who is from the Netherlands. And we were talking about the rise of right-wing politicians. And this woman, who is herself LGBTQ, said that it's because it's everywhere and because people are tired of seeing it. It is funny how that the inflection of the language is there. It's always up. So the people there, I think they're tired of seeing it everywhere. And, it's fine. You can talk that way. Europe. That's how you do. But yes, this was the basic premise was people are tired of seeing this just battered everywhere. U.S. embassies flying a flag of an ideology. Yeah, it's going to cause a backlash. Here we go. The ruling, in effect, outlaws activism in a country growing blah, blah, blah. The extremist label could mean that gay, lesbian, trans, or queer people living in Russia could receive lengthy prison sentences if deemed by the authorities to be part of the so-called international LGBT public movement. I'm pretty sure it's already hard enough to be like lesbian, gay, or bi, or trans in Russia as it is. The Justice Ministry earlier this month filed a request that the international LGBT movement be labeled extremist without clarifying what it meant under the term, which is not a registered entity in Russia. Well, I will tell you, when you create the Progress Pride flag, you have created a unique symbol representing an ideology, and that's how they get you. If you just said outright, like, we believe this thing. I mean, let's think about it. I believe in meritocracy. Do I have a flag? No. Okay, what about personal responsibility? Do I have a flag? No. I believe in individual liberties. Do I have a flag? Yes, it's called the Gadsden flag, and we have it hanging in our skate barn. So there's that, but that's about it, right? So when you get to that point, and I will stress, the Gadsden flag is a symbol of the American Revolution. And so absolutely, we here in the United States believe in that. But when you create a flag for your ideology, they can then identify. And they've done it with the Gadsden flag. I think it's wrong. And I think in this instance, this is overly broad. The Progress Pride flag is the cult gay communist flag. That is not meant to be insulting. That's quite literally what it is. It represents more than just LGBT. When you create a flag that represents a core group of people who have engaged in extremist acts, don't be surprised if they use that against you. And to be fair, the founding fathers were considered terrorists by the crown, though we know them to be heroes. And I'll tell you the difference. It's one thing if you're like Hamas and you go and kill civilians. It's another thing if you are the body politic of the land in which you live and the crown is 3,000 miles away. Human rights activists have said The vague wording of the ruling that targets the international LGBT public movement allows Russian authorities to persecute any individual or organization it considers to be part of the movement. And that's the problem with authoritarianism. Okay? I'm not for this stuff. I think these people, the Progress Pride flag stuff, I think it's crackpottery. But we don't want the government to be able to determine you are part of this other and therefore we'll go after you. Because that's what they're doing in the U.S., but towards Trump supporters. So even though there is no such thing as an international LGBT movement, it is clear that all legal activities of LGBT organizations will be impossible in Russia, said Igor Kochetkov, the head of a rights group Russian LGBT network. Lucy Stein, a Russian political activist and member of the Pussy Riot art collective, said that everyone who identifies themselves as part of the LGBTQ plus movement could now become a target. Look, man, in the United States, 2008, big push towards, gay marriage and not a whole lot of action. Barack Obama isn't for it. He says civil unions or something, but not marriage. Hillary Clinton's absolutely opposed to it. And I believe it was was it 2014 or 16? Gay marriage, I think it was 14. Gay marriage is finally ruled by the Supreme Court, and they say, okay, you can do this. This is, in the United States, a gradual push towards, and, if a guy wants to marry a guy, it's like, my attitude is always just kind of whatever. It's kind of whatever. Because it's not a particularly large group of people. The problem becomes when they start putting it in schools and teaching children things that are not for children. And that is the slippery slope. The end result is now there is a massive pushback, and Gen Z they've dropped. Gen Z support for gay marriage dropped 15 points over the past 2 years. That's wild. Because these are the same people. It's not like a new generation emerged and they have different views. No, these are the same people whose views are changing. And they're now closer to boomers' perspectives on gay marriage, which is still like saying, it's fine, whatever, but going down. And the reason for it? People don't like seeing it jammed in their face. They don't like seeing the marches. They don't like people being able to get away with crimes. And it's one thing. If two men say, we love each other and I want to be able to see my husband if he's ill in the hospital, we say, okay, I understand that. Then you get these viral videos of adult men in tighty whities thrusting their butts into children's faces. You get these videos of men performing sex acts in public at pride events. I'm not kidding. And there's that one where the man wears the Bugs Bunny mask and jumps around naked in front of children. This results in people saying, enough! You're breaking the law and getting away with it. That's what people are mad about. I don't care if two guys want to get married, right? Or two women. I don't care. I care about when you go in public and engage in lewd and lascivious activities. I care when you have drag shows where people are removing clothing. You bring children on stage. That is inappropriate. It's crossed the line. As for Russia, this is what happens. It's not a good thing they're doing this because it's ill-defined, it's vague, it's nebulous. That's bad. Okay? But we're not Russia. But my point is simply this. If people are wondering how this stuff is happening, you take a look at any one of these videos. And don't give me this BS. These people, LGBTQIA2PPSQ+ or whatever, they're putting every single ideological worldview under this umbrella to try and get it some kind of legal protective status. That's not it, man. The issue was, if you're a guy and you're into guys and you love a guy, okay, fine. Bro, I've always been more liberal on this one. You live your life. You mind your own business. Keep it to yourself. If you're a woman, same thing. I think there should be no issue if you go out in public holding hands. That's fine. It should be the same for you as for anybody else. And if a kid asks their mom or dad, they see a gay couple on the street, that kid say, well, when you're older, we'll explain it to you when it's appropriate. But what's happened now is the schools are keeping it secret. They're giving it to kids without their parents' knowledge. They're pushing kids towards horrible things that could result in long-term bodily damage. And for this, it has transformed what once was live and let live. It's transformed it into this is how you must live. And now people are pushing back on the whole thing. I wouldn't be surprised if we see something like this start to emerge in the United States, especially the way things are going with people saying national divorce. Man, I got to tell you, I get it. Let's take a look. Gay people will move to blue states. They're not going to have kids. People who want to get abortions will go to blue states. They abort their kids. People who have kids who are questioning their gender identity may result in receiving sterilization procedures. Either way, all of it leans towards and trends towards less people in blue states. And then in red states, they'll do the opposite. Fine. You call it whatever you want, man. In 20, 30, 40 years, red states will overpopulate. Blue states will depopulate. And this country is going to change dramatically towards the right. I don't agree with what Russia's doing, man. Because the idea that you could label anyone an extremist with this vague thing is bad. And that's what they do here. So we don't want that. That's not a good thing. But I tell you, I understand why it's happening. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up tonight at 6 p.m. over at YouTube. 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimcastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.